Next week, I'm hosting a completely free masterclass, and I'm so excited for this. It's the simple 4-step client attraction framework for new coaches. It's going to help you to sign clients with ease without having to be a social media superstar. I'm going to be covering the best way to create, market, launch, and sell your irresistible coaching offer, how to avoid the most common pitfalls that are preventing new coaches from having faster success with signing clients to their business. And I'll be sharing the only important needle-moving actions that you should be focused on when you're new in business so that you can instantly reduce the overwhelm you're feeling and actually achieve more in less time. Head to the link in the show notes to save your seat, or head over to Instagram and send me a DM with the word masterclass, and I'll see you in there next Tuesday. These 5 common behaviours or habits are killing your success in your coaching business if you are falling into them. And I want you to know about them so that you can flip the script and see much faster progress in your coaching business. Hello and welcome to the Life First Coaching Business Podcast. I'm your host, Leonie, and I'm all about helping new coaches like you create life first businesses you love by building out the key foundations you need for an easeful and joyful business, where you get to make an impact doing what lights you up and helping others. We talk about the strategies, the systems, and the mindset you need to make your coaching business work for you. So let's dive in. Hello, welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I'm going to share a few behaviors that can really keep us stuck when we're aiming for something in our business, when we're working towards a certain goal, and we usually know the things that we need to do to get to that goal, or we have a good idea, but we can easily distract ourselves by engaging in some of these behaviors that I'm going to talk about today. The reason I wanted to talk about them is because they're things that I really have to keep in check. And I know I can spot now when I'm slipping into them, and I know they're going to derail me, take me off course. So I think recognizing them, knowing what they are, and seeing when you're doing them and being able to quickly stop and move away from them is such a game changer when it comes to making progress in your business. So I'm sure you're going to relate to some of these because I think they are human nature, most of them. They can really keep us stuck. And obviously, all these kind of subconscious behaviors that we sometimes have is nearly always it's our brain's way of trying to keep us safe, trying to keep us in a place of comfort, and trying to stop us from putting ourselves into a situation which feels vulnerable and feels unsafe. So knowing that's where it comes from is also helpful. But I'm going to dive into some of them, and I'm sure you're going to recognize where some of them might currently be playing out for you in your business, or where you've engaged with them in the past, and then you can see how that's taken you off course. So number 1, the mistake or behavior that can hold us back in business is zooming in too much on the instant results that we're seeing from our actions. This can look like things like posting a piece of content and being really focused on how many likes, how much engagement, how much traction, how many views that piece of content got. Or putting out an invitation for sales calls and looking at instantly like how many responses did I get to that, and getting very focused in on the instant result from an action. Whereas what we really need to do is zoom out and look at all these small actions in our business as compounding actions and detach from the instant result, and actually look more at the overall outcomes that are happening in our business. And also understand that most of the time, the payoff from the actions we're taking today are not going to be seen for another 2 or 3 months, because things compound over time. For instance, when it comes to, say, visibility or sales in your business, we all know that people need to hear our message multiple times or see our invitation multiple times. And yet we can get so focused in on the instant result for every individual action. So if you can feel yourself doing that, I want you to try to zoom out and just put aside the instant feedback that you're getting and actually look at what was I doing a few months ago and how is that showing up for me now? Maybe a few months ago you had gotten a bit despondent and you had decided just to stop showing up online. And therefore, what you're seeing now, if you're in a space at the moment where you're not seeing the results you want, it's probably not to do with what you're doing today. It's to do with what you were doing a few months ago. So zoom out and realize that everything you're doing today is going to pay off a bit further down the line. And that's where that shift can make such a difference, because what often happens is we get too fixated on the instant results, feel a bit disheartened, feel a bit despondent, and then throw our plans and throw the actions that we were planning to take out the window. Because like, oh, it's not paying off, it's not working, I haven't got the energy or the willpower to keep showing up when I'm not seeing the results. And therefore we end up in this cycle of yo-yoing. Whereas if you just can keep taking action now in spite of whatever's happening, knowing that the things that you're doing have strategy behind them and are leading to that result you're looking for, and just keep taking action, keep being consistent, keep showing up, keep doing the things that you said you were going to do in spite of the instant results that you're getting. And this is not to say ignoring something that's not working. So that's why I say have that strategy behind it, but don't get despondent. Make sure you're running the course of a plan that you've decided to take, and then you can truly judge the results of it. But you can't truly judge the results of it instantly. You have to have some retrospect to know that, yes, I carried out this full plan and now I'm looking back and seeing the results of that. So that's number one. And I hope that will make sense. Maybe you can see where you might have had this kind of a reaction to a lack of instant results or disappointing instant results, and that's kind of derailed you, which means that further down the line you're not getting the payoff had you stuck to the plan and had you kept showing up. So that's mistake one, chasing instant results or focusing too much on instant results. Okay, and then behavior or mistake or habit number two is overcomplicating things. This is one I really have to keep in check for myself. And I think for a lot of us who have the desire to start our own business, it comes because we are quite creative and ideas-driven people who have inspiration to create a business, to serve our clients, to solve their problems. And the fact that we have that creative mindset often means that we have tons of ideas and we have lots of different passions we want to pursue in our business. That can be one reason why we overcomplicate things, because we've got all these different ideas we want to explore. The other reason is because we often are programmed with this belief that to have success, it needs to be really hard. And that comes from the way we're brought up, the way we're educated, the messages we've been given all through our life. In order to reap the rewards, you have to work really hard. I'm not saying that you don't have to put work into your business and that it can all just be easy peasy, but the fact that we have this subconscious belief that everything needs to be really hard work before it will pay off, we're not looking for the path of least resistance. We're following the path of more resistance often, and that results in overcomplicating things and thinking that you need to do 10 steps instead of 3, or focusing on the things that aren't going to get the best results. So one question to ask yourself is, what would this look like if it was easy? That question is a really helpful one. See the path of least resistance and actually pare things back to the minimum number of steps to get the result. And then ask yourself, what's the 20% that's getting me 80% of the results? So you can focus on the things that are really working for you and double down on those things rather than adding more different things into the mix and thinking more equals more. Often less is more, and just really focusing on the things that actually move the needle. And then just asking, what can I strip away? What can I take out to still get this result? Having that kind of a mindset of how can I find the path of least resistance is a really good exercise to stop you from overcomplicating things. Sometimes these things are subconscious. We're overcomplicating the process to keep ourselves safe because we have some kind of a fear around what achieving the result will actually mean. Sometimes we can tell ourselves we want these things. I want the success. I want the clients. I want whatever it is to work. But subconsciously, you've actually got some kind of fear or resistance around that. So uncovering what that might be is also a very helpful exercise. And number 3, I talk about this a lot, but it's perfectionism. And I think that this is something women struggle with a lot more. And I'm sure you've probably heard the fact or statistic before that if, say, a woman is applying for a role or a job, she will want to be able to tick nearly every single box before she feels she can apply. Whereas a man will look at a job advert and say, oh yeah, I tick a few of those, I'll apply for it. And so I think as women, we really feel like everything needs to be ticked off to be done perfectly before it's worthy enough of being put out into the world, or before we can put ourselves forward, or before we can believe that we're doing enough, giving enough, being enough. And that perfectionism can really, really halt our progress. Always aim for like 70-80% done and put things out and get things out into the world, because the longer you spend trying to perfect something, it's usually that last 20-30% where you can overanalyze, get stuck there for ages, and usually it's quite quick to get yourself up to 70 or 80% and getting something out there, whether it's a piece of content, whether it's your offer, whether it's your invitation for your sales calls. You know, for instance, thinking that you want to launch a new offer and then putting all these steps in place where you're like, well, I need to create a perfect web page for it. I need to have it all laid out and, all the fonts looking beautiful and everything aligned, and getting so fixated on making like a beautiful sales page. Whereas you could just put it into a Google Doc and send it to some people who think it might be a good fit and get instant feedback on what they think and move forward, and not create that web page until you know you've got it working and you've created an offer that people want. So that's just an example of where, again, overcomplicating and getting into perfectionism, thinking things need to be perfect before you can put them out into the world. Just understand that your business is always a work in progress. There's always going to be refinement. There's always going to be updates. Nothing is ever getting to the point where it's completely done and dusted and perfect. So get things out, get feedback, get the data, and you're going to make progress so much faster if you can take that stance on things. Mistake number 4, and this kind of relates back to that looking for instant results. And it also relates back to the fact that we're often creative and have lots of different ideas. And the mistake that we can often end up falling into is flip-flopping between ideas and implementing one idea, one strategy. Let's say, for instance, it's a particular offer in our business, not seeing those instant results, and then just throwing it aside and thinking, well, it's obviously not what people want, it's not working, so I'm going to try something else. And again, never seeing the plan through, not realizing that people need to be reminded and see things multiple times before they're going to put their hand up and say yes. And therefore that flip-flopping between ideas, flip-flopping between strategies, and throwing things out before you've really given them the chance is holding you back and stopping you from seeing results, stopping you from seeing progress. But actually flip-flopping from one idea to another and chasing shiny objects can really hold you back. So to overcome all of these, it's picking a strategy, making a plan, and sticking with it, and giving yourself like, I'm focused on this for this amount of time. I am not going to veer off course, and then I will look at the results at the end of it when I know I've given enough to it, rather than flip-flopping from one idea to another. And then mistake number 5, or behavior number 5, is over-analyzing decisions. And I think this can happen a lot in that last 20% I talked about when it comes to like perfectionism, is getting so deep into the individual task that you're doing that you then start to really overanalyze it. Instead of just getting it out into the world and waiting for the feedback over time, we can get into our own tunnel vision in our own heads about everything and spend too long making decisions and wasting time on the details that aren't bringing in results and that aren't getting you the feedback quickly. So these all have a lot of overlap, but it's really stepping back from overanalyzing a decision. If you're seeing yourself questioning something lots and lots of times, actually sometimes it's about giving yourself a time limit to get something done and just saying, I've got 2 hours to do this. At the end of 2 hours, it's done. And being strict on yourself in that way to actually just get it out and get it done. You know, sometimes you've got to almost imagine yourself like an employee in your business. This has really helped me over the years, is to think like, you're putting your different hats on in your business. And when that hat is on, whether it's your marketing hat or your admin hat or your sales hat, they might be things you don't particularly love doing. They're not the actions that light you up in your business, but they are crucial to your business. And you've got to put that hat on and think of yourself like an employee of your business. You've agreed you're going to do it, and you've just got to get it done, and you've got a deadline, and it has to be finished by that time. And sometimes shifting the way we see our role in our business as actually there are these different hats I have to wear. And when I've got that hat on, I've just got to get myself to do it, and do it by the deadline can be a really helpful way of just pushing yourself forward to make progress and not get too stuck in overanalyzing. I'd love to know if you see yourself in any of those behaviors. Just to summarize them again. Number one is getting too focused on the instant results and not zooming out and looking at the results over a sort of 2, 3, 4 month period. Number two is overcomplicating things and not taking the path of least resistance and adding in extra steps, extra complexity that aren't needed. Number three is getting too focused on things being perfect rather than just getting them out into the world. Number four is flip-flopping between ideas because we're not giving things the time they need, or we're getting bored, or we're getting despondent because of the instant results. And number five is over-analyzing decisions and over-analyzing the detail in what you're doing. Now, the way that I have tackled this for my clients is I know that most of the time the strategy isn't the sticking point, it's taking the action, which is the sticking point. And you can spend so much time learning, absorbing information to help you with the strategy and help you with the how. Whereas most of the time what you need is the commitment to an action plan. And so that's exactly what I've created in my program for my clients and the coaches that work with me is here's an action plan. Here's every single step you need to take. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be polished. It can be messy and scrappy, but take the actions, follow the process for 8 weeks, and then look at the results that you got, and then have a really quick way to shift and refine and tweak if you need to, based on the feedback and based on the data of that process. And just agreeing like, okay, I've got the steps. They're all in front of me. I'm not going to fall into these 5 different behaviors around it. I'm just going to take the action. And that's what I encourage all my clients to do when I'm working with them, is not to question the actions so much, not to get so fixated on the instant results, but just to keep moving, keep taking action and commit to the full process in order to actually get results. Because whether the results are hooray, every single thing I hoped for, or not quite what I wanted, you've got the data, you've got the feedback, you've had the conversations, you've had the interaction with real people to get feedback. And that's the most important thing, because when we're just in our own heads and we're in our own tunnel vision and we're not getting any external feedback, how can we make a decision on how to move forward that actually works? Whereas when you're getting things out into the world, when you're having interaction, when you're having conversations, you can very easily shift and make changes. And instead of approaching it like, I need to be this perfect, polished, final outcome that I put out into the world and everything is exactly as it's going to stay, and thinking I can't put it out into the world until that's what it is. If instead you approach it as, this is an experiment, this is a minimum viable product approach to my coaching business, I'm getting things out into the world, I'm getting feedback. No one cares if it's not polished and perfect. All your clients care about is getting out of the painful problem they're in and achieving the desired outcome. So if you can think of it that way and approach it in a much more experimental way, and think that the only way you're going to get to that polished version of your business is once you've tried a few things, once you've gotten scrappy, once you've put yourself out there into the world and got real-time feedback and tweaked and improved as you go. That is a much better way to approach things. And to work in 90-day sprints is a really good way to manage your business, because once you do come up with a 90-day plan, you can say, right, this is what I'm going to stick to and not veer off course. So I find that so helpful for myself. And I still have to really keep myself in check, because I'll go off on a tangent on another idea and think, oh, that sounds really good, I'm going to start implementing that, or I'm just going to add this in. I really do have to work on pulling myself back to my 90-day plans. I can spot it now. I can see myself doing it, and I can pull myself back much quicker, and I can set boundaries for myself. It's a work in progress to work against some of our human instincts, but these 5 things, or shifting these 5 things, recognizing if you're falling into any of them and seeing how they're keeping you stuck, is so game changing that you can just move yourself forward and stick to a plan that you're putting in place. If you're a coach who's in the early stages of your business and you want that plan, you want to understand exactly what you should be focused on to take that messy action and have results and data to go off, that you can make sales quickly, get in front of your ideal clients quickly, and create an offer that's irresistible, I'm going to be hosting a masterclass on the 1st of April called the 4-Step Client Attraction Framework, and I talk you through that exact process. It's a 4-step process that you can implement in your business in order to create your irresistible offer with real-time feedback and take action every single day that's moving the needle, rather than getting distracted on things that aren't going to give you results. If you want to save your spot for that, just click on the link in the show notes and sign up. I've given this masterclass a couple of times now, and I always get amazing feedback from how it's changed people's perspective on, oh, actually this is a lot less complicated than I thought it was, which is always my aim, is to try and simplify things. So if you want to save your seat for that, click on the link in the show notes, and I'll see you in there on the 1st of April. All right, have a great week, and I'll speak to you next time.